Good morning, everyone. I am Zenat Angela B. Maligdem, your reporter for today. Before we proceed to our topic, SS3B, will you please look up in the sky and tell me what do you see? I know all of you will say the clouds, and some will say an airplane. Well, that's what we usually see when we go outside or peek in our window and look upward. In some places, hot air balloons and northern lights are visible in their sky. So these clouds, airplanes, hot air balloons, and northern lights are connected to our topic for today, which is all about the atmosphere. Now you might be wondering, how come they are connected to the topic? Your question will be answered later as we go on to our discussion. But first, let's define atmosphere. The Earth's atmosphere is the layers of gases which protects the Earth from the radiations and cosmic rays coming from the outer space. This atmosphere acts as a blanket because it keeps the average temperature of the Earth nearly constant or just right. It also provides us with something to breathe and also help make life on Earth in several ways. Next is the layers of the atmosphere. The Earth's atmosphere can be divided into 5 main layers. These layers are: number 1, the troposphere. Number 2, the stratosphere. Number 3, the mesosphere. Number 4, the thermosphere. And number 5, the exosphere. So let's talk about troposphere first as the lowest layer of the atmosphere. So tropos means change. This layer gets its name from the weather that is constantly changing and mixing up the gases in this part of our atmosphere. This layer is the closest to the Earth's surface. On average, it extends from the ground to about 12 kilometers or 7.5 miles high. The troposphere contains about 75% of all the air in the atmosphere and almost all of the water vapor, which forms clouds and rain. Did you know that in this layer, air is made up of approximately 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and 1% with small amounts of other gases, including water vapor and carbon dioxide. We humans obviously live here within the troposphere. Hot air balloons, clouds, and birds are also found in this layer. Did you know that the temperature gets colder as we climb higher and the air pressure drops? So did you learn something about the first layer? Okay, let's now move on to the second layer, the stratosphere. Strat means layer. This layer of our atmosphere has its own set of layers. The boundary between the stratosphere and the troposphere is called the tropopause. It is the region where airplanes fly. The main reason is this less turbulent layer provides a smoother ride. The stratosphere layer extends from the tropopause to about 50 kilometers or 32 miles above the Earth's surface. This layer contains a thin layer of ozone molecules which forms a protective layer
and absorbs harmful ultraviolet radiation from the sun. The high-altitude weather balloons flying into the stratosphere for monitoring atmospheric conditions and climate research. Now that we're done to the second layer, let's now move on to mesosphere. Meso means middle. This layer is located above the stratosphere and below the thermosphere. It is the third layer in our atmosphere, which is 35 kilometers or 22 in miles thick. The transition boundary, which separates the mesosphere from the stratosphere, is called the stratopause. In the mesosphere, fewer air molecules absorb incoming electromagnetic radiation from the sun. Did you know that most meteors burn up in this atmospheric layer? So what is a meteor? It's a piece of rock or matter that has been broken off in space and travels through the atmosphere. When they cross the mesosphere, friction and momentum cause the meteor to burn and appear as a light crossing in our sky. Okay, let's now move on to the fourth layer, the thermosphere. So thermo means heat. This layer has extremely high temperatures and located above the mesosphere and below the exosphere. So, the boundary between the mesosphere and the thermosphere atmospheric region is called the mesopause. The thermosphere extends from the mesopause to 700 kilometers or 435 in miles above the surface of the Earth. The thermosphere is the thickest layer in the atmosphere. Only the lightest gases, mostly oxygen, helium, and hydrogen, are found here. The aurora or northern lights and southern lights and satellites mostly occur in this layer of our atmosphere. So what is aurora? A natural light display in the sky, particularly in the high altitude regions, that is caused by the collision of energetic charged particles with atoms in the high altitude atmosphere. Next is the exosphere. Exo means outside. The exosphere represents the outermost layer of the atmosphere. It extends from the top of the thermosphere to 10,000 kilometers or 6,214 in miles above the Earth's surface. In this layer, atoms and molecules escape into space and higher altitude satellites orbit in our planet. So that's the end of our discussion. To check if you really understand our lesson for today, let's do a fast talk. Are you ready, SS3B? Okay, let's start. Thank you everyone. I hope you learned something and enjoy our discussion for today.